theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Rong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Rong.
Hi Warren, this week's homework has put me in a really good mood.
Oh, it was so good. And of course the homework is Changing Ends, which is all about Alan Carr's childhood. It's on ABC iView. You can still catch it. Suzy, it was so refreshing to see this film. Can I just start? I'll start with Paul from Murray Bridge, who's just sent in a comment saying, "Hey Warren, I've watched 3 episodes so far and the kid who plays Alan Carr is fantastic. You really feel he is a young Alan Carr. He's hilarious and has the mannerisms down pat." Tell us about the show, Suzy.
The English comedian Alan Carr is perhaps one of the most flamboyant characters to ever appear on our screens. In this 6-part sitcom Changing Ends, now available to stream on ABC iView, we discover that trademark campness was always a feature, even when Alan was a young boy of just 12 or 13. It comes without saying then that bullying was a permanent fixture in his life. But with a marvelously supportive family, Alan was able to brave all the obstacles and emerge at the very top. Changing Ends is extremely funny, brilliantly conceived and performed to deliver an experience that comes with a comedic flavor analogous to Alan Carr's well-known stand-up shows. I found myself laughing out loud many times, and when I wasn't laughing, my face was certainly locked in a wide grin, just completely delighted by the charming storytelling. Campness only works when there is a darker truth underpinning the humor. Changing Ends is always about prejudice and injustice, but it never feels dark. Little Alan suffers a lot of discrimination at school, as well as from his horrible neighbors, but somehow his light never dims. For queer audiences, I think a lot of the laughter comes from a very particular kind of discomfort. We cringe at many familiar scenarios that are simply awful, but the show encourages us to laugh at it all. And I think there is a process of catharsis that goes along with all that laughter. It is important that we see the past for what it is and be able to acknowledge that the past is simply no longer, that we have grown, advanced, and are stronger. To be able to laugh at old trauma is empowering, almost like a reminder that we have to free ourselves from these traumatic histories. Changing Ends features not just a young Alan Carr in the 1980s, as well as a present-day version. The cast includes some really remarkable performers. I'm sure you would love the people who play his parents, his neighbors, and his teachers, all wonderfully colorful and fun and just camp. Warren, I know you weren't an effeminate boy, but I hope you were able to relate to some of Alan's stories.
Oh my goodness. Do you know, Suzy, I love this. I sat down and I binge watched the whole lot. I thought it was so good. And you're right, it's about laughing at trauma, isn't it? Laughing at our trauma, and it kind of does lighten it up a little bit. And if you're in the space where you can look at it and laugh, but I reckon I'm Alan Carr's biggest fan. I love him. I think he's absolutely hilarious, and I agree with what Paul said from Murray Bridge. I thought the kid who played Alan Carr, they cast him perfectly. In fact, the whole cast was amazing. Who was your favourite?
I think the 2 older women, like Alan's mother and the horrible neighbor.
She was amazing. They were absolutely
They were almost
amazing.
More camp than both the Alan Carrs.
Yeah, I thought so too. I absolutely loved it. It's one thing that I've realised, and I suppose since broadcasting here on Joy, in particular, and talking to you, Suzy, and all the Joy Drive family who message in, is our experience is very similar, isn't it? It doesn't matter which school we went to, or often which country, if it's a comparable country like it is in England. But certainly our experiences are quite similar. There's almost a common thread of bullying that goes through it. And I didn't realise it. I thought I was the only one that was bullied, the only gay boy, like this. But then you talk to people and you realise, actually, everyone's gone through it to some extent.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about our community. When I first transitioned, almost 15 years ago now, I thought, am I becoming a straight person, because I'm no longer, a man who sleeps with men. I was becoming a woman who sleeps with men. So I thought, does it mean I become hetero? And then I kind of was figuring that out for a while, and I think ultimately I understood queerness, and a lot of it about our community is that commonality of having experienced those prejudice. I think that's a very, very big part of it. And I don't think we often are able to identify it in one another, because when we see each other, we don't see our histories right away. But when a work of art is really good, it makes us feel really like joined, makes us feel really united. And I think a show like this, when I was watching this, I thought, those of us who can identify with the story and those of us who understand the humor, it's something that we have in common, and that's pretty special, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said, you knew I wasn't a camp kid, and I wasn't. And I wonder how much of that was because I was trying to, I suppose, blend in with everyone else, and not be that person, or what was going on. I don't know, but I wasn't a camp kid. And the other thing that I suppose if you look at Alan Carr's experience as well, he gravitated, and I know a lot of gay men do this. They gravitate towards the drama and the arts, and the drama teachers at school. And you could see Alan Carr did that. That is something that I never did either. I gravitated more towards, I suppose, the science teachers. So that was different as well. And maybe I'm thinking that helped hide, the fact that I was gay. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful stuff about Alan Carr's connection with the tea ladies. The women who serve the meals.
I mean, that was great. And Alan Carr, he's just, as a kid, so witty and able to come back quickly with certain replies, particularly, to the bullying, etc. And, I mean, what an amazing man, honestly. I wish I could have.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm watching and I'm thinking maybe it's all entirely made up. Maybe his childhood, he wasn't quite as quick in his childhood. But then I'm watching him as a grown-up. I'm thinking it seems really natural for him, and also it feels like a defense mechanism that's very second nature to him, to be able to use his words and his wit to kind of deal with these things, and it's admirable. I wish I was quite that quick. I was never that quick. I understood, that there are times you won't understand that humor is a really good sort of protection device, but I don't think not all of us are blessed with that talent, and his talent is really obvious. Like, I've known his work for must be more than 10 years now, and when I first saw him, I thought, wow, this is extreme. Like, I haven't seen someone that camp since the Carry On movies. And I was, initially I was initially a little bit I was a little bit initially of two minds. I'm like, oh, well, why is he representing himself like that? Was he representing himself like that just so he can get noticed and just so that it becomes a trademark sort of thing? But obviously now it's been a long time and he's still the same, and I've seen him in different kinds of shows and he's always the same person. It's really fascinating, and I'm really happy for him to have this kind of success, because in our time, a person like that would never achieve this kind of success.
I love the way you said that.
Always
in our
have
time.
Yeah, in our time.
It's true. Yeah.
But we are, like, you and I and Alan Carr are Gen X, and we grew up always understanding that if you need to butch up, even if you're not able to pass as straight, you need to somehow butch up. We grew up, and then they started to have gay stars, but they always looked like straight people, and then we never believed that someone could be that kind of camp and that kind of gay and have such great success. So I'm very pleased for him.
There's one scene where I think the bullies say to him, you're dead at lunchtime or something, and he says, well, if I've only got a couple of hours left, I'm going to be me. And I thought that was really quite a powerful thing to say for a kid. And you're right, Suzy. I mean, he does have that quick ability to come back with stuff, and most of us don't have that. And of course, that can make the bullying experience much more traumatic and damaging for us. We do need to acknowledge that if not all of us could. A lot of us sort of hid and gave in and said, yeah, here, steal my play lunch and what have you. But he did have that ability.
Or a lot of us go into the closet and pretend to be one of them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But he never did that. And I thought it was really important to see how strong his mother was. And even though the father was a little bit iffy, the father was too obsessed with masculine culture, but both of them were really supportive, and both of them were very good at demonstrating love and care for the son. And I think I was able to kind of draw this sort of correlation between how he is so unapologetically himself because he had so much support at home.
We're talking with Suzy Wrong about Changing Ends, which you can catch now on ABC iView. They're really quick episodes. They're about 20 minutes each. There's 6 of them. Another SMS has just come in saying, I watched a couple of episodes. Not sure I'll go back to it. It's a bit twee and silly, which is, I suppose, not everyone's going to necessarily like it. Suzy, I want to talk about football. Can we talk about football?
I'll try.
I think we need to acknowledge the hideous traumatic experience that it can be for kids. I feel like we don't acknowledge that, and it's such a popular sport, and I know a lot of our community also support it, and there's a dedicated football show here on Joy 94.9. But despite all of that, a lot of us had a really bad experience with it, and yet we still see it as being such a popular game in this city in particular. I suppose different types of football in different cities as well. But it does damage a lot of us, and it's a horrible thing to force kids to do just to blend in if they don't want to play it. And I certainly didn't want to play it. I tried a couple of games. I couldn't even kick the ball. It would just go past me. It's horrible. It's awful. And I reckon we just need to acknowledge that.
I think there must be a way to include queer kids into sport. I think the problem with sport, for young boys is that it's always entangled with masculine culture. Obviously, if you're looking at women's sport and girls' sport, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to have all those bits that involved in playing sport, because girls play sport the way that girls play sport. But somehow, when boys do sport and all that, it has all those extra meanings, and that makes it so hard for queer kids. There's an entire episode on that issue, isn't there? When he first discovered, he was new to secondary school, and then he discovered that PE at secondary school is a little bit different because you do have to have your shower with everyone.
Oh, exactly.
And that there aren't like individual stalls.
I know. I mean, I hated that. I used to dread it and do everything to get out of having PE. But what I want to say is, in Alan Carr loved bird watching. He loved bird watching. That is a sport. And let's encourage kids, if they've got an interest in a particular sport, like I loved archery and I loved skiing, but don't give me football and cricket. And yet it was forced down my throat. And the same with him. He had football forced down his throat, yet he really enjoyed bird watching. For goodness sakes, let him enjoy it. Encourage him. There's nothing wrong with that. It's forcing us to do sports that are mainstream, male-dominated, heterosexual sports. We don't all want to do them. Let us find our own sports.
Yeah, it's this obsession with It's this obsession with conformity that heteronormative society does, and they almost do it instinctively without really thinking very much about the reasons for doing it and how it affects people in general. And I guess it comes down to understanding what conformity means and how you need to try not to impose that on people, especially on children, because children are really good at showing their true colors.
Exactly.
I think children are really good at telling you who they are, and then we have this thing of trying to twist them into other things. And obviously for some kids it works out well, like some kids with kind of really conventional guidance that they achieve great success, but there are lots of kids like us that those methods don't work.
Suzy, I used to get bullied about sport all the time at school, primary school and high school, and then year 9 we had a skiing trip to Mount Buller. We were very lucky to have this trip, and all the bullies got on the chairlift, and it was I think the Burke Street chairlift, which is quite a busy beginners run here, so it's very flat, very easy. We all went up, and they all fell off in a heap. And you know what? I just skied past them with the PE teacher. She was an Olympic skier, and she was, Warren, you come with me, the rest of you. And from that point onwards, I never got bullied. again, they all respected me. It was like, wow, he can do something.
Oh, so you need to do a thing like that to get respect.
Yeah, it's just like, well, you know what? Just football wasn't my thing, and cricket wasn't my thing, but this was, and that's my point. Is let's let people enjoy what they love doing.
Yeah, good point.
Suzy, on that note, we're going to take it out with one of the songs from the Changing Ends series, Taylor Dane. But before we do, what's our homework for next week?
Yeah, there are lots of great songs on Changing Ends from our time. Next week, True Detectives Season 4 is on Binge, starring the almighty Jodie Foster. We don't have to bother with the earlier seasons. They are all entirely different and standalone. But definitely do check out Miss Foster playing a kick-ass detective in Alaska. And we'll have a good chat about True Detective when I see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, Suzy. That's Suzy Wrong. And, of course, Changing Ends on ABC iView.